Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to share and subscribe the channel. The Crystal Tavern's windows gleamed with an otherworldly light as Nyx pressed herself against the shadows of its outer wall. Her purple skin, usually radiant in the crystal realm's eternal twilight, was dulled by the cloak she wore. She watched the patrons through a gap in the curtains, searching for the one person who might help her escape her fate. The tavern's reputation preceded it, a gathering place for outcasts, rogues, and those seeking to disappear. Perfect for someone like her, a high-born enchantress desperate to avoid an arranged marriage to the cruel crystalline Lord Obsidian. A figure caught her eye, a human man sitting alone in the corner, his fingers idly tracing the rim of his glass. Dark hair fell across his face, partially hiding a scar that ran along his jaw. Everything about him screamed dangerous, yet something in his posture spoke of honor. This had to be Thorn, the rogue she'd heard whispers about. Taking a deep breath, Nyx pulled her hood lower and slipped inside. The tavern's warmth hit her immediately, along with the scent of spiced wine and burning herbs. A few heads turned, humans and crystal folk alike, but most quickly looked away. She made her way to Thorn's table, her heart thundering against her ribs. "I hear you help people disappear," she said softly, sliding into the seat across from him. Thorn's eyes flickered up, a deep brown that seemed to see right through her disguise. "I hear a lot of things too," he replied, his voice low and rough. "Like how the crystalline Lord's bride-to-be has gone missing." Nyx's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. "Then you know why I'm here. I know you're either very brave or very foolish." He leaned forward, studying her face. "Probably both. I have payment." She reached into her cloak, producing a crystal pendant that pulsed with inner light. "Pure essence crystal. Worth more than enough to buy your help." Thorn's expression didn't change, but his eyes lingered on the pendant. "You realize what he'll do if he catches you?" "I know exactly what he'll do," Nyx said, her voice hardening. "I've seen how he treats those he considers his property. I won't become another trophy in his collection." Something shifted in Thorn's gaze, recognition, perhaps, or understanding. He reached for the pendant, but Nyx pulled it back slightly. "Do we have a deal?" A half-smile tugged at his lips. "You don't trust easily." "Good." He sat back, crossing his arms. "But getting you out of the crystal realm won't be simple. Obsidian has guards at every major portal." "I know of a hidden path through the Twilight Forest," Nyx said. "It's dangerous, but better than marriage to him," Thorn finished. He was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "All right. We leave at dawn. The guard patrols are lightest then." Relief flooded through Nyx, but before she could respond, the tavern's door burst open. 3 crystal guards in gleaming armor strode in, their weapons crackling with energy. Thorn moved with incredible speed. He grabbed Nyx's arm, pulling her up and toward the back of the tavern. They slipped through the kitchen just as shouts erupted behind them. "There's a passage," he whispered, pushing aside a heavy shelf to reveal a narrow tunnel. The crystal folk built this place on old smuggling routes. They ducked inside just as footsteps thundered past. Nyx's heart was racing, but not entirely from fear. Thorn's hand was still on her arm, warm and steady. "Still think helping me is worth the risk?" she asked as they navigated the dark passage. She felt rather than saw his smile. "More than you know." They emerged in a small courtyard behind the tavern. The crystal realm's eternal twilight cast everything in soft purple shadows. Thorn led her to where 2 horses waited, already saddled. "You planned this," Nyx realized. "I like to be prepared." He helped her mount, his touch lingering perhaps a moment longer than necessary. "Besides, I've been looking for an excuse to irritate Obsidian for a while now." As they rode into the night, Nyx couldn't help but study her unexpected ally. There was more to him than the simple rogue she'd expected to find. She saw it in the way he handled his horse, in the confident set of his shoulders, in the careful way he scanned their surroundings. "Why are you really helping me?" she asked finally. Thorn was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said, "Because everyone deserves the freedom to choose their own path. Even enchantresses who make dangerous deals in taverns." Nyx smiled, feeling the weight of her arranged marriage falling away with each hoofbeat. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, she felt hope. And if her heart beat a little faster when Thorn glanced back to check on her, well, that was a complication she'd deal with later. Behind them, the crystal realm's twilight began to fade into true darkness. Somewhere in his palace, Lord Obsidian would be discovering her absence. The hunt would begin soon, but with Thorn beside her and the promise of freedom ahead, Nyx was ready to face whatever came next. The night air carried the scent of adventure and possibility, and as they rode deeper into the wilderness, Nyx realized she hadn't just bought an escape, she'd found the beginning of something far more dangerous and thrilling than she'd ever imagined. Dawn broke differently in the borderlands between the Crystal Realm and the Twilight Forest. Here, reality seemed to blur, creating ribbons of color that danced across the sky. Nyx watched the display from their makeshift camp, her purple skin catching the ethereal light. 3 days had passed since their escape from the tavern, and each moment had taught her something new about Thorn. Like how he always took the last watch of the night, or how his hands moved with surprising gentleness when tending to their horses. Even now, she could hear him moving quietly through their camp, preparing for another day of travel. "The border patrols will be heavier today," he said, offering her a cup of heated morning brew. "The new moon makes it easier for the crystal guards to move undetected." Nyx accepted the cup, trying to ignore how her fingers tingled where they brushed his. "You seem to know a lot about their patterns." A shadow crossed his face. "Let's just say I've had reason to study them before." Before she could press further, a distant horn echoed through the trees. They both froze, listening as the sound was answered by another, closer call. "They're coordinating," Thorn muttered, already moving to gather their supplies. "We need to move." Nyx helped break camp, her heart racing not just from the danger, but from the way Thorn stayed close, his presence both protective and thrilling. They mounted quickly, pushing their horses into the thickest part of the forest. The terrain grew treacherous, forcing them to dismount and lead their horses through narrow passages between towering crystal formations. Nyx felt the familiar hum of crystal energy all around them, but here it was wild, untamed by the careful cultivation of the realm's cities. "Watch your step," Thorn warned, reaching back to steady her as she navigated a particularly steep descent. His touch sent warmth spreading through her despite the chill air. "I've never been this far from the central cities," she admitted, trying to distract herself from how right his hand felt on her waist. "The crystal formations here, they're beautiful." "Dangerous too," he said, but his voice had softened. "Like some other things I know." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the pursuit behind them seemed to fade away. Thorn stepped closer, his free hand rising to brush a strand of hair from her face. Nyx's breath caught in her throat. The moment shattered as another horn blast rang out, much closer this time. They pressed on, leading their horses through increasingly wild territory. The crystal formations grew denser, their surfaces reflecting and refracting light in ways that made it difficult to tell direction. "There's a cave system ahead," Thorn said as they paused to catch their breath. "We can lose them in the tunnels." Nyx studied his profile in the shifting light. "You've used these caves before?" "Once or twice." That half-smile she was growing to love appeared on his face. Usually with less attractive company. She tried to hide her blush by checking their horses' tack. "Is flirting always your strategy when being pursued by crystal guards?" "Only when the person I'm protecting is worth the risk." His tone was lighter, but his eyes were serious when she looked up. They found the cave entrance just as shouts echoed through the forest behind them. The opening was narrow, barely visible behind a curtain of luminous vines. Thorn led the horses in first, then helped Nyx navigate the tight entrance. Inside, the cave walls glowed with veins of raw crystal, casting everything in a soft, intimate light. The space was larger than it appeared from outside, with several tunnels branching off from the main chamber. "We'll wait here until nightfall," Thorn said, securing the horses. "The guards won't risk the caves after dark. Too many stories about what lives in these tunnels." "Are the stories true?" Nyx asked, settling against a relatively smooth section of wall. Thorn sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Some. But right now, we're more dangerous than anything hiding in these caves." She turned to look at him, studying the way the crystal light played across his features. "Why did you really agree to help me, Thorn? And don't say it was just for the payment." He was quiet for a long moment, his shoulder warm against hers. "I saw something in your eyes that night in the tavern. Something I recognized." He met her gaze. The look of someone who's been caged their whole life, finally deciding to break free. "Is that what happened to you?" she asked softly. "Story for another time," he said, but his hand found hers in the dim light, fingers intertwining. "Get some rest. I'll take first watch." Nyx knew she should pull away, maintain some distance. Getting too close to Thorn would only complicate things. But as she leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling his thumb trace gentle circles on her hand, she couldn't bring herself to care. The crystal light pulsed softly around them, creating shadows that danced across the cave walls. Outside, the hunt continued, but in this moment, Nyx felt safer than she ever had in the Crystal Lord's palace. She closed her eyes, letting Thorn's steady presence and the gentle hum of the crystals lull her towards sleep. Just before she drifted off, she felt a press to her temple. It was such a tender gesture, so different from his usual confident swagger, that it made her heart ache. Whatever happened next, whatever dangers awaited them, Nyx knew one thing with absolute certainty: she was falling for the mysterious rogue who'd helped her escape. And there was no turning back now. The twilight forest lived up to its name, wrapped in eternal dusk that painted everything in shades of purple and blue. Massive trees with luminescent bark stretched toward the sky, their branches intertwining to create a canopy that glowed with soft, otherworldly light. Nyx walked beside her horse, leading it through a narrow path while Thorn scouted ahead. A week had passed since their cave hideout, and each day brought them deeper into this mysterious realm. But it wasn't just the forest that made her feel lost, it was the way her heart raced whenever Thorn looked at her, the way his touch lingered longer each time they helped each other over fallen logs or across shallow streams. "There's a clearing ahead," Thorn called back softly, emerging from the shadows. "Looks safe enough to make camp." As they entered the space, Nyx gasped. The clearing was carpeted with luminous flowers that pulsed with gentle light, their petals shifting colors like aurora lights in the sky. A small pool of crystal-clear water reflected the glow, creating an almost magical atmosphere. "It's beautiful," she whispered, kneeling to touch one of the flowers. Its light brightened at her touch, spreading to nearby blooms in a rippling wave. Thorn watched her with a soft expression she'd never seen before. "The forest responds to you," he said, crouching beside her. "Must be your enchantress nature. Or maybe it just knows I'm running from something dark." She looked up at him, finding his face closer than expected. "Like you did." His hand came up to cup her cheek, thumb brushing across her purple skin. "I knew from the moment I saw you in that tavern that you'd change everything." The air between them crackled with tension, like the energy before a storm. Nyx leaned into his touch, her heart thundering in her chest. "Thorn," she whispered. "I need to know something. Anything. If we make it through this, if we actually escape, what happens then?" He was quiet for a moment, his eyes never leaving hers. "What do you want to happen?" "I want," she took a shaky breath, "I want to stop running. I want to find somewhere I belong. And I want..." "What?" His voice was rough with emotion. "You," she admitted finally. "I want you." The word hung between them for a heartbeat, then Thorn closed the distance, capturing her lips with his. The kiss was gentle at first, almost hesitant, but quickly deepened into something more desperate. Nyx's fingers tangled in his hair as he pulled her closer, and around them, the luminous flowers pulsed brighter in response to their passion. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, the clearing was bathed in intense light. Thorn rested his forehead against hers, a smile playing at his lips. "The flowers approve, at least." Nyx laughed softly, but then grew serious. "The Crystal Lord will never stop hunting us. Let him try." Thorn's arms tightened around her. "I've spent my life running from things, Nyx, but this is worth standing and fighting for." She studied his face in the magical light, seeing the determination there, the strength that had drawn her to him from the start. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, "about why Obsidian wants me so badly." Thorn sat back slightly, keeping her hand in his. "I'm listening." "The arranged marriage wasn't just about political alliance. My power, it's different from other enchantresses. I can manipulate the raw crystal energy itself, bend it to my will. Obsidian wants to use that power to expand his control beyond the crystal realm." As if to demonstrate, she raised her free hand. The luminous flowers responded instantly, their light gathering into a swirling orb above their heads. Thorn watched in amazement as she shaped it into different forms, a bird, a butterfly, a dancing flame. "That's why you knew the crystal formations in the caves would hide us," he said, understanding dawning in his eyes. She nodded. "And why we need to be careful." If Obsidian catches us, he won't. He won't. Thorn pulled her close again. I won't let him take you back there. I won't let him cage you again. Nyx melted into his embrace, feeling safer than she had in years. Above them, her light creation scattered into thousands of tiny sparks that drifted down like starfall, making the moment feel even more magical. They made camp there in the clearing, laying their bedrolls close together as night deepened around them. Thorn kept watch while Nyx slept, but their hands remained linked, neither willing to break the connection they'd finally acknowledged. In her dreams, Nyx saw a future where she was truly free, not just from Obsidian, but from all the expectations and constraints that had bound her life. And in every version of that future, Thorn was by her side, his love giving her the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The luminous flowers continued their gentle dance of light, as if blessing the union of the crystal enchantress and her rogue protector. But in the shadows beyond the clearing, unseen by the sleeping lovers, a crystal scout observed their camp, then slipped away into the darkness to report back to his master. The attack came at dawn. Crystal guards emerged from the shadows like wraiths, their armor gleaming with an inner light that cut through the forest's perpetual twilight. Nyx woke to the sound of Thorn's warning shout, barely rolling away in time as an energy blast scorched the ground where she'd been sleeping. Run! Thorn yelled, already engaged with two guards, his blade dancing with deadly precision. But Nyx stood her ground, raising her hands as raw crystal energy responded to her call. The luminous flowers around them pulsed with power as she drew from their energy, creating a shimmering barrier between them and their attackers. Guards crashed against it, their weapons sparking uselessly. Impressive, a cold voice cut through the chaos. But then, that's why I chose you, isn't it? Lord Obsidian stepped into the clearing, his black crystal armor absorbing the ambient light. His presence seemed to dim everything around him, like a void pulling in all warmth and color. You didn't choose me, Nyx spat, maintaining her barrier. You tried to buy me. And now I find you giving yourself away to a common thief. Obsidian's eyes flicked to Thorn, who had dispatched his opponents and moved to stand beside Nyx. Though perhaps not so common after all. Isn't that right, Prince Thorian of the Shadow Realm? Nyx's concentration wavered, the barrier flickering. What? Thorn, or Thorian, tensed beside her. That's not who I am anymore. No. Obsidian's smile was cruel. Does she know why you really helped her escape? About our little arrangement. Don't listen to him, Thorn said quickly, but Nyx could hear the guilt in his voice. Tell her, Prince Thorian. Tell her how you approached me months ago, offering to help my bride escape in exchange for crystal technology for your dying realm. Tell her how you plan to use her power to save your people. The barrier shattered as Nyx turned to face Thorn, her heart breaking. Is it true? His silence was answer enough. Nyx stumbled back, crystal energy crackling around her hands. Everything was a lie. No. Thorn reached for her, but she pulled away. Yes, I made a deal with him. Yes, I needed your power to help my realm. But Nyx, everything between us, every moment, every touch, every kiss, that was real. How can I believe you? Her voice cracked. You're no different from him. You just wanted to use me too. Enough of this drama, Obsidian interrupted. Nyx, return to my side willingly, and I'll spare your prince's life. Refuse, and watch him die. Crystal guards surrounded them, weapons raised. Nyx looked between the two men, one she'd fled from, one she'd fled with, and felt her world crumbling around her. Choose quickly, my dear, Obsidian purred. Even a prince's blood spills easily. Thorn dropped his weapon, falling to his knees. Nyx, I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. But you have to run. Don't let him take you. How touching. Obsidian mocked. The noble prince sacrificing himself for love. But we both know you're only trying to save your own realm. Something shifted in Nyx's expression. She raised her hands, crystal energy swirling around them. You're both right about one thing, she said softly. My power is extraordinary. The clearing exploded with light as Nyx released a wave of pure crystal energy. Guards went flying, trees groaned, and even Obsidian staggered back. In the chaos, she grabbed Thorn's arm and ran. They crashed through the forest, crystal energy crackling in their wake. Behind them, Obsidian's roar of rage shook the trees, but Nyx didn't stop, didn't look back, didn't let go of Thorn's hand even though every touch now felt like betrayal. "Nix, please," Thorn gasped as they ran. "Let me explain." "Save your breath," she snapped. "We're not safe yet." They ran until the sounds of pursuit faded, until Nix's legs trembled and her lungs burned. Only then did she release Thorn's hand, turning to face him with eyes that held both love and pain. "Now," she said. "Tell me everything. And this time, don't lie." Thorn told her everything as they huddled in the hollow of an ancient tree. How his realm was dying, its shadow energy depleting. How Obsidian had promised crystal technology that could save his people in exchange for helping orchestrate Nix's escape, making her think it was her own idea, her own choice. "But then I met you," he said, voice rough with emotion, "and everything changed. You weren't just some powerful enchantress to be manipulated. You were everything." Nix stared into the twilight forest, processing his words. "Your realm is really dying." "Yes. My people are suffering." "I was desperate." He reached for her hand, then stopped himself. "But I should have told you the truth. Should have trusted you." She was quiet for a long moment. "I understand desperate choices," she said finally. "I just wish." A blast of crystal energy interrupted her, splintering the tree above their heads. They dove apart as Obsidian stepped into view, his armor now crawling with black crystal formations that seemed to drink in the light. "How predictable," he sneered. The tragic lovers sharing one last moment before their end. Nix rose slowly, crystal energy gathering around her hands. "This ends now, Obsidian." "Yes, it does." He raised his hands, black crystal spreading across the ground like corruption. "Your power belongs to me. It always has." "No," Nix's voice was steel. "My power belongs to me. And I choose how to use it." She struck first, sending a wave of pure crystal energy at him. Obsidian deflected it, but Thorn was already moving, his blade finding gaps in the Crystal Lord's armor. They fought together, Nix's power and Thorn's skill complementing each other perfectly. But Obsidian was powerful too. His black crystal formations grew larger, more twisted, forcing them back. One caught Thorn in the legs, sending him sprawling. "Isn't this fitting?" Obsidian laughed. "The lying prince fallen at last. Tell me, Nix, will you watch him die, or will you surrender?" Nix looked at Thorn, saw the love and regret in his eyes, and made her choice. She reached deep inside herself, touching the core of her power, not just the ability to control crystal energy, but to understand it, to reshape it. "You want my power?" she asked softly. "Then take it." She released everything, every bit of crystal energy she could access. But instead of attacking Obsidian, she directed it into his black crystal formations. She could feel their structure, their resonance, and she changed it. The black crystals began to glow, first purple, then white. Obsidian screamed as his own armor transformed, the corruption becoming pure energy. "What are you doing?" he gasped. "Choosing," Nix said. She reached back, finding Thorn's hand without looking. "I choose to use my power to help, not hurt. To heal, not destroy." The energy built to blinding intensity. When it finally faded, Obsidian lay unconscious, his armor transformed into pure crystal that bound him securely. Nix swayed, exhausted. Thorn caught her, holding her close despite his injured leg. "That was incredible," he whispered. She touched his face gently. "I'm not finished." Closing her eyes, she reached for the crystal energy again, but this time she shaped it into something new, a bridge between realms, a way to channel power. "What are you doing?" Thorn asked. "Saving your realm," she said. "And choosing my own path." The crystal energy flowed through her, creating a network of pure crystal veins that stretched toward the shadow realm. As they watched, the twilight forest seemed to brighten, new energy flowing through ancient paths. "It's not just crystal energy," she explained. "It's balance. Light and shadow working together. Your realm won't have to suffer anymore." Thorn stared at her in wonder. "After everything I did, why?" "Because love isn't about controlling or using. It's about choosing, every day, to be better than we were." She smiled. "And I choose you, Thorian of the Shadow Realm. If you'll still have me." His answer was a kiss that made the crystal formations around them pulse with light. When they finally parted, both breathing heavily, the forest seemed brighter, more alive. "What now?" Thorn asked, still holding her close. Nyx looked at the unconscious obsidian, at the newly formed crystal network, at the men she loved despite, or perhaps because of, his flaws. "Now we build something new. Together." In the days that followed, word spread through both realms of the Crystal Lord's defeat. Of the new alliance between Shadow and Crystal. Of the enchantress who chose love over power and found a way to have both. Some called it a scandal, others a revolution. But in a quiet corner of the twilight forest, where luminous flowers bloomed and crystal energy danced with shadow, Nyx and Thorn called it something simpler: freedom. Freedom to choose, to love, to become who they were meant to be. And if sometimes their kisses made the crystals glow a little too brightly, well, that was just another kind of magic altogether.